Welcome, everyone, to Creators Corner. Apologies for the delay in getting this started, but excited so much for all of you to come aboard the Tabletop Express. My name is Chris Barrows, and I am excited to bring you Creators Corner, where we go behind the meeple to meet the people. And today I have Andy Steiger here. Andy, in particular, I got to tell you, one, I'm just so excited to have you here, in particular because Targi is arguably in my top 10 favorite games of all time. And anytime you get to talk to someone who's created something that's brought you so much joy, obviously there's a lot of fun in that. So thank you for coming aboard and talking with me today.
Oh, I'm glad for having me. Thank you for having me. I'm honored. I did not know that you had Targi in your top 10 list. So it's a great honor to have now the ability to chat a little with you and with all the people who will join in. So thanks for having me.
Well, my pleasure. Well, I start everyone in Creators Corner with the same question, because designers, artists, all these people who bring board games to life in a lot of ways are like superheroes because you bring joy to people's lives. And in particular, in what can be challenging times, I think that's meaningful. But heroes have origin stories. What is your origin story in terms of a world of board gaming? What's the game or the games that got you into kind of the industry or into the love of board games?
Actually, no specific game was the reason that I and my wife together, that we started to discover board gaming as a hobby. It was the fact that my wife was pregnant with our first son. So before she was pregnant, we went to the cinema very often, to theaters, to restaurant. We took a dancing class, and we were a very outgoing couple. But then when she got pregnant, she told me, Andy, I'm too tired to leave the house all the time and to drive around. So maybe we can look for something that we as couple can do in our home so that we do not have to leave the house so often. And I had some old games in the cupboard. As teenager, sometimes I played with friends, Catan and Carcassonne and some Spiel des Jahres games, but I was not really into the hobby. I just had these games in my shelf. So I started to bring these games to the table, and I started to play with my wife, and it was so interesting, and we had such a good time, such a good quality time, that we started to discover it more and more. And we only had 2 or 3 games. So I went to a game shop and I looked around, and I was astonished how many different games there were and how many different mechanisms there were. And I bought a bunch of games and we played. And from this day on, this is now 15 years ago, we play regularly as couple, maybe 3 or 4 times a week. This is our quality time together. Yeah, and we never lost the love for games from this day on. So it was just that my wife and I, we wanted to have something to do, and we found this great hobby. So I hope many other couples will find this hobby. It's such a great thing to do together.
It is. My wife and I enjoy, we play them with my son, or as we jokingly say, player 3, and then my daughter, who's, future player 4. And I just think, again, one of the reasons why I even have a channel is because I want to share this story of board games with families and get people playing, not thinking too much about overcomplicating things, just getting games to the table. You in particular, I know you have a background as well in terms of one thing that I care about a lot about, which is education. I know it's my understanding you are an educator, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm a kindergarten teacher, so I work with kids in the age range from 3 to 6 years old. And in my work, I play a lot of games with the kids. It's also a great educational tool, not only for learning, like math or facts about nature, but, social learning, to win gracefully, to lose gracefully, to learn to finish a game. Often in kindergarten, in these young kids, they start a game and they want to leave it, and I always encourage them to finish a game for the other players so that they see it's important because it's a social thing that these kids do together, and it's not a good thing to drop in and drop out all the time.
No,
and it's a lot of fun. Yeah.
It is fun, and it's so important now. I think what you're talking about is really the teaching of patience, right? Which parents talk about how you teach patience to kids. I think board games are so critical to that. And you obviously can speak to an audience that obviously that is an opportunity. Your background though, and all that put together, you discover games, you've got education in there. Where did the game Targi come into play, and how did that get created in your mind, and in turn go from your mind into a published piece of work? Because my understanding is you had a prototype, you showed it to Castle, and that was it. Like the process worked really well for you with this game.
Yes. Okay. It's a longer story. I'll try to keep it short. So if I start babbling too long and too much, you can interrupt me, please. But
sure.
The main reason that Targi exists is, my first son brought me into gaming, but the birth of my second son brought me to design Targi. Because when our second son was born, 3 years later, after our first son, my wife said, "Oh, now I have a little baby in our house, and I have a lively 3-year-old kid. I'm too tired to play with you, Andy, in the evening. I have to go to bed because the kid will wake up in the night, and I have to feed the kid." And so my main gaming partner was gone, and I thought, okay, what will I do now with the time that I have available? Because board gaming was so important for me, especially gaming as a couple. So I thought, okay, maybe I can use this time alone and try to create a game, especially with couples in mind, and to create a game that I and a wife would love. So if nobody wants this game, we have a game that we can play together and we would enjoy. And so I started with some ideas in my head, back and forth, but because I was 3 years, only 3 years in the gaming world, I had no connections or did not know much. So I bought a couple of books about game design. There is a German book series. It's called Spiele entwickeln, and it is maybe 5 or 10 books. It's from famous German designers. They go on a conference once a year, and they give each other feedback, and they have sessions, and they talk. And what they learn in this weekend, they write in those books. So I read those books, and I said, okay, I will try to come up with a list of things. I made a top 10 list of things. What do I love in games? So I love worker placement game. I love game as a couple. So I like to have a 2-player game. And after I had finished this list, I sat down and started to create Targi. And because I like worker placement very much, my main idea was to create a worker placement that will work fine for 2 players. And then my second thought was, because there are already many worker placement games out there, it should have a special twist. So I thought, what about the idea if I place a worker, it will affect not only one thing, but 2 or 3 things all at once. So I had these rows of cards, and you place your worker above those rows. There are 3 cards under this worker, and you get those 3 things. This was my first initial idea. And then I thought maybe it would be cool if I had workers on the left side of the cards, and I can also activate the cards from the top to the bottom, from left to right. Then this got a little complicated. So I thought, okay, maybe just where I place the workers and where they intersect. This was such a good idea. And this main core, this intersection mechanism that sets Targi a little bit apart from other games now, was created in 30 minutes by playing around with this idea. And
correct me if I'm wrong on this, but most of your playtesting in the process, because I've talked to a few people about playtesting, but most of your playtesting really was from my understanding, at least, you and your wife, you didn't have access to like a Discord full of players or something like that, right? You were playing the game with your wife and seeing what worked and what didn't.
Yes, the thing was, we also didn't even had other players in our lives that time. I just had my wife and me. We played games. We had no gaming friends back then. Meanwhile, we have a gaming group, but back then it was just my wife and me. So I didn't even know about where I could play test games. 90% was with my game. My game was tested my wife and me. And after it was nearly finished, I found out there was a gaming group near where I lived, and I went with my prototype there, and they played tested it as well. And then I sent the prototype to Cosmos because it was the only publisher that I know back then that had a 2-player line. And I thought, okay, it shall be a 2-player game. I will send it to them. And it really worked out very well. They received the game. And after 3 months, the first reaction was, hello, Mr. Steiger. We have your prototype, but we do not understand your rules. So please, could you rewrite the rules and send us maybe some pictures with some gaming examples? And I was so nervous because I thought, oh no, I did not do a good job because they cannot understand how the game is played. And writing rules is the worst part of game design. And I really was very nervous, and I took 3 days to rewrite the rules, and I made a lot of photos. And I sent it again to Cosmos. And then they said, okay, now we understand now how the game works. We will try it, and we will come back to you. And then maybe 3 months later, I came home from work late in the evening. We had a meeting in the evening, and my wife said, Andy, there is a phone call on the answering machine from Cosmos. Please sit down. And instantly, I knew they will not take the time and say, we will not publish your game. If they want to reject the game, they will not call me. So I knew before I heard the message that they will accept the game. And I sat down, and there was a short but very nice message that they like the game very much, and they will not change very many things. It's nearly perfect, and they will publish it. And then it took another year.
So so let me just make sure we get this straight. You get that, and you get obviously probably it must be kind of a really cool experience just to get that call as someone who just sent out one prototype, I should say. But then the process of creating a game, you start getting into this about a year after that. From how long was the entire process then? Because if you've got the follow-up of a year, just to put it for the people who maybe are potential designers here, what really is the turnaround time that kind of your game and other games go through then? There really is. It's not like you put something to the table and then boom, it's out there and for sale. There's a long process to this, really, is kind of the process that you're sharing.
Yeah, Targi was a very quick one because my designing and proto testing was only 3 months. After 3 months, I gave it to Cosmos. But I really worked nearly every evening. I worked 2 or 3 hours for the game. And after they gave me the call and said we will publish a game, it was 6 months later. And after that time, it was 1 year, and then the game was in stores, which is actually very fast. Normally, when you have a game, maybe you work 1 year or 1.5 years, and sometimes it is with the publisher, and it is 6 months before they even look at it. But Targi was very fast. Everything was very fast because when I wrote Cosmos, I made a very clear list with very many points why this game is very, very good for their line of games, so that they saw I had not a game that I pitched to everybody. It was a game and I wrote in my email, I said, I will only pitch this game to you because I think it's perfect for your line of 2-player games. And if you will not take it, I will not pitch it to somebody else. And I think they saw that I really had a lot of forethought about this game, and that I really knew them as publisher, and it was not a shot in the dark. I even, maybe I can show it. No, okay, it doesn't matter. But I had the prototype, and I already had printed the Cosmos logo on the prototype, so that they could see it's really just for them, and if they take it, they take it. They saw I had really had a lot of thoughts about the game and about the company.
That's a really, actually, that's I can only imagine that's a nice touch. And it's like, look, I envision it with you to this point. And what's interesting that you point out is you talk about this being they were one of the ones that you saw doing 2-player games at that time, because since then we've seen a lot of 2-player games. This one came out in 2000 at Board Game Geek as of 2012, but
yes,
really since then we've seen almost an explosion of them. Do you think, when did you see kind of that 2-player kind of just popularity skyrocket? Because you're fairly early in the process, I would argue, with a lot of the best 2-player ones. And I will just take a moment to point this out. On Board Game Geek, which I think is impressive, this is ranked overall 124, which it's one of the older games, I'd argue, in that top 125, 150. So a pretty impressive holding for you to stay up there as long as you have, and 97 on strategy. So again, people definitely like your game, but in terms of 2-player, I'm wondering what you've seen. Like, how have you seen that trend go since you put out Targi?
Yeah, it's funny. In the situation for Cosmos, I did not know it back then, but actually they didn't want to keep the 2-player line alive. They said, before I pitched my game to them, we will not do another 2-player game. They had some other ones, like the Catan 2-player is a very famous one, or Jumbo is a very, very famous one. But actually, they didn't want to do another one. But when they saw the Targi prototype, they got really excited, and they said, okay, we will do this one also. And it was such a big hit also for Cosmos that they kept going with 2-player games. And really, maybe a year later, many other publishers also had 2-player games, like you say, like Lookout Games with Patchwork, for example, or Pegasus Spiele. And I'm very happy, because my main gaming focus is 2-player. So still, I am very happy when there are games that are especially designed for 2 players. So I'm very happy that it really took off again.
I got to ask, because you did Targi the expansion, right? And I'm interested, how did the process differ with Targi the expansion versus Targi? Because now you've got something out there, and arguably a game that some would say is just really great in its own base. So creating expansion was a conscious choice. So wondering what you went through in doing Targi the expansion.
The funny thing is that Cosmos was actually not interested in an expansion, because they are not known for doing a lot of expansions, especially for 2-player games. This is not a very common thing. So I asked them at the beginning, after they had Targi in their catalog, I asked, out of fun, how many games do we need to sell before I can think of an expansion? And my editor told me such a high number that I thought, okay, we will never achieve this. This is impossible to do. But I liked the game so much, and my wife liked Targi so much, that I thought, okay, it doesn't matter. I will just work something out for the 2 of us. So we have a special Targi edition with more cards and more stuff and more things to do. So I made it mainly in the beginning just for my wife and me, like the base game. And then suddenly we reached this number that my editor had told me in a joking way. And I said, oh, now we reached the number. Can we think of doing an expansion? It would be already finished. I have it here. And he said, you know what? It must be really, we will only do this expansion. It is really so good that the players will say, we will not want to play without it again. If it's just an expansion for expansion's sake, we will not do it. And I said, okay, I will send you the prototype for the expansion. And he said, okay, it's a very good timing because we are going on a weekend where we play prototypes. So I take it with me. And after the weekend, he called me and said, the player said they don't want to play without it again. So now we have to do it. And then they published it as well. Yes.
I love it. I also know from some conversations that this is a game that may not seem like in the United States, it's not a game that you see necessarily on the shelves in like all the different shelves, right? You'll see in the hobby shops. But my understanding is, I mean, it's in grocery stores where you are and things like this is kind of an entry level game around you. That's kind of at least that's what I'm aware of. And I will say, for me, this is a game I've introduced to people. It's not the first game I introduced, but when I'm trying to teach someone something that's unique and a little bit different, I do pull this game out. If someone likes strategy, it is a game I pull out. So I'm grateful that you went through this process and did this. Now, one thing that's interests me, we do have a question, by the way. I want to put this up because someone asked if you can win Targi without using gold. See what you think to that one.
No. You cannot win Targi without gold. Actually, my first prototype gold was as common as normal goods, and it was not interesting. It was only a different kind, it only looked different like the other goods. So I thought, okay, there is no reason to have gold if it's just another good. I must make it what's the word? Sacred? No, not sacred. Fewer. Hard to get. Yes.
It's really indispensable. Like you need that gold. When I know when I see in Targi when the gold comes out, like I need that gold. I need to get I have to get. And the neat thing about this game you've talked about is the fact that it has this unique cross section that you're putting a piece somewhere and then a piece somewhere else on the cross section card you're getting. And I don't even know. It's funny. I was thinking I don't even know technically what to call that mechanism. Like I don't know, but there's truly a ton of use of it. So I don't know if there's a word for it, but for me, it's just so unique and different. We do have a question asking if you have a favorite strategy in the game in terms of just playing. And then if there's any way you advise beginners to kind of learn the game.
Okay. First of all, the main feedback that I get is that normally women tend to win Targi way more often than men. And I think I thought a lot about this. And I think women can faster change their plans. I don't want to generalize, but often men, they have a plan. They said, I will have all the same cards. And then they will not differ from this idea. And women tend to think, okay, it does not work, so I will not go for the same cards in the row or something like that. My personal strategy that I use is I try to build one row with the same cards, maybe 2 rows with the same cards because you get a lot of bonus points. And then I go at least 1 row with different cards. Some people try to have 3 rows with the same cards, and it's so hard to do because in the end the card will just not show or will just not come up. So I only had one game where I had really 4 of a kind in every row, and that's so hard to do. So I would at least say make 1 row different. And a second tip, if you use the trader, look that you can exchange 2 gold at once because gold is so rare in the game. So, and if you go there, then you can have so much goods that you can take 2 golds with you. And by the way, the expansion makes it a little easier to get gold because there's water, and that takes a little of the pressure of the very few gold coins.
Yeah, I will say this. I have the expansion. I've only got 1 play of it in, and I like it quite a bit. I enjoy some of the variances it adds, and it's a great game. I'll go back to that base version of Targi still. Enjoy it, and I play Targi a lot, in particular on line. And I want to ask you before I let you go here, what is the process that you go through too when you look at just the fact that you've had it and given permission for it to be on something like Board Game Arena or other places like that, and do you go and play your own game with other people ever? I'm wondering if you've ever pop on there and just kind of play the game against others, because there's some designers I see who want to do that. There's others who are kind of like, okay, I'm good. I'm going to play with my physical version. I don't even want to go to their digital adaptation.
Yeah. When the question came if Targi can go to Board Game Arena, I had no idea how big this platform is because I had not played very much online. And so I just said, oh, it's an honor. I feel honored if Targi would be available for people to play, because, my feeling is I'm happy when the game is late. It does not matter for me if people buy a copy, but I'm happy if people play the game. I don't need to sell many copies. And Board Game Arena was a chance that many people can play the game and can try it again and have fun. And I'm so happy when I think maybe somebody is playing Targi now. And with Board Game Arena, this is so easy. And after the implementation, after the people implemented it, I played a lot of games with the person who coded the game for Board Game Arena, so to look if everything works fine. And then I had a lot of time trying it. And after that, there was a little, how shall I say it? A lot of people wanted to play against me, which I think it's a very big honor for me that people want to play against the designer. But there came so many requests that people want to play against me that I had to say, okay, I'm sorry, maybe it's better I don't play at all, because I felt it's unfair to say to some people, let's play, and then I say to other people, no, I will not play with you. So meanwhile, I don't play at all because I don't want to be unfair to people. But sometimes if I have a lot of time, you can watch other people play. Just watch two different people play. Sometimes I do that and look how they are playing, but I will not interact.
And I do have a question from Ryan Espin, who joins me on this channel for a few things. He'll be, by the way, me on the channel on Saturday as we'll be talking solo games. Ryan does ask, is it ever a good idea to go for one intersecting point?
Normally not. Normally, it's a very, very special case that you need a border card so much. But normally I would always go for two intersection points. I have played Targi a lot, and maybe I'll do this every 40 game. Once that I only take one intersection point, because it's just too much of a waste. And one time I had only one intersection point, and I was on the Fata Morgana, and then I recognized I cannot move the tribe marker that I wanted because the second tribe marker was not there. So it was totally wasted. But I would not really do it. It's better to have two.
Well, I have one last question for you. It's an important question I try to ask everyone. If you were to speak to, a collection of aspiring designers, and who really just wanted to have a game that they got out and published in their lifetime, right? And it was just a dream of theirs. What's the advice that you would give to them?
I learned one thing in my life. It's not only for board gaming or for designing, it's actually for everything. My tip is to just do the dreams you have, to try them. So many people, they have ideas and they have dreams, but they never do it. They have it in their head and they never try to do it. Like I was a very long time, I was a fan for improvisational theater, impro comedy. I don't know if you know impro comedy.
Yeah, I actually was a
Chris?
theater major, believe it or not, back in the
Yeah.
back my college days, I guess 15 years ago, I
Ah,
did
well,
theater
then
and
you know
improv.
what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, good times.
Great. Okay, and I always looked at the stage and I thought, oh, it would be so cool to be a improvisational player. But I never had the courage to do it. And one day I thought, okay, it doesn't matter. I will reach out to an improv group and say I want to join them. And I did, and now I play on stage. And the same thing was with board game design. I had this dream, it would be so cool to have a own game idea, and I just do it. And so I would tell everybody, do not let nothing hinder you, just do it. In the end, if a publisher does not want to have a game, but you have the game for yourself, and you have created something, even if it's only for you. It's better than you did not do anything.
I love that advice, and I want to thank you for taking time to chat with me here today on the Creators Corner. It's been a real pleasure. For everyone, I would definitely say highly recommend you go out and check out Targi. It is a fantastic game. And it is one that I enjoy to playing with my wife and other people. There is iterations, as mentioned, on Board Game Arena. If anyone does want to play, feel free to find me on Board Game Arena. That is at Tabletop Express. I'm happy to play a game with you. I'm happy to show you the game. And with that said, I just want to again say thank you to you, Andy, for being here with me. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me. It was a great pleasure. Thanks, Chris.
And with all that said, everybody, thank you again for joining us here live. Welcome aboard the Tabletop Express. If you've liked this video and you want to see more great conversations with creators, designers, and artists, definitely like and subscribe. And I will look forward to seeing you all very soon. Saturday, we've got a video about solo games. And then on Monday, the first edition of Marvel Monday, where Ryan Espen and I are going to be talking about Marvel Champions. So please tune in, and I will see all of you very soon. Thanks again for joining the Creators Corner.